The large glass building gleamed under the afternoon sun, its spotless floors reflecting every bit of light like a mirror. Inside, the air smelled faintly of fresh coffee and expensive perfume. The company was celebrating the end of the quarter with a small party in the lobby, catered food, laughter echoing off the marble walls, and the low murmur of corporate conversations. Standing quietly in the corner, holding a mop and a bucket, was Daniel, the janitor. He was in his late 40s, tall but slightly stooped from years of manual labor, with lines etched deep into his face, the kind that come not from age alone, but from carrying heavy burdens. His uniform was clean but faded, and his dark brown eyes, though kind, had a hint of tiredness that never really went away. Daniel had been working here for almost 3 years. Every morning before sunrise, he arrived to sweep, polish, and keep the building spotless. He rarely spoke unless spoken to, and when he did, his voice was quiet, almost hesitant, as though he'd learned long ago that people in places like this didn't expect much from someone like him. But Daniel's life wasn't as simple as it looked from the outside. He wasn't just a janitor. He was also a single father to an 11-year-old girl named Emma, the center of his world. Emma had curly brown hair, big curious eyes, and a laugh that could brighten the darkest day. She was the reason he worked extra shifts, skipped lunch breaks, and wore the same pair of shoes for 2 years straight. That day, Daniel hadn't planned to be near the lobby during the party. Normally, he stayed out of sight when events like this happened. But a spilled drink near the entrance had called him down, and he was mopping quietly along the far wall when he overheard a group of young employees chatting nearby. They were gathered near the company's grand piano, a glossy black Steinway placed in the lobby more for decoration than for actual use. Most of them had never touched it, but they liked to lean against it while sipping champagne, pretending they were in a scene from some luxurious movie. One of them, a man named Ryan, noticed Daniel working in the corner. Ryan was the kind of person who thought teasing others was harmless fun, especially people he thought were beneath him. "Hey," Ryan said suddenly, grinning at his friends, "I bet the janitor can't play a single note on this thing." The others chuckled. "Yeah, but wouldn't it be hilarious to see him try?" Another woman giggled. Before Daniel could walk away, Ryan called out loudly, "Hey, sir. Come here for a second." Daniel paused, gripping the mop handle a little tighter. He'd learned to expect that tone, the half-playful, half-condescending voice people used when they were about to make you the punchline. "Yes," Daniel asked quietly, stepping closer. Ryan gestured to the piano. "We were just wondering, do you play?" Daniel looked at the instrument for a moment, his eyes flickering with something no one noticed, a memory, maybe, or a feeling he kept buried. "A little," he said. The group laughed. "Oh, perfect, come on, play us something." Daniel hesitated. He knew they weren't asking because they actually wanted music. They wanted a joke, a funny video for their social media feeds. He thought of refusing, but then he thought of Emma. She loved the piano. She always begged him to play whenever they passed the old, dusty keyboard at the thrift store. Without another word, Daniel walked over to the piano and sat down on the bench. His calloused fingers rested lightly on the keys. He hadn't played in years, not since before Emma's mother left, not since the accident that had changed everything. He took a slow breath. Around him, the lobby was filled with muffled laughter and clinking glasses, but in his mind, Daniel was somewhere else entirely. He remembered a small apartment, warm with the smell of fresh bread, where a younger version of himself used to play in the evenings while his wife hummed along and baby Emma clapped her tiny hands. Back then, music had been his life. Before bills piled up, before he had to choose between chasing his dream and feeding his daughter, he had played in small bars, wedding receptions, even once at a music festival. His dream had been to compose his own album. Life, of course, had other plans. Now, sitting at the Steinway in a crisp corporate lobby, Daniel felt those long-forgotten pieces of himself stirring again. His fingers twitched slightly, muscle memory awakening after years of silence. Ryan leaned against the piano, smirking. "Come on, maestro, show us what you've got." The group chuckled again. Daniel didn't respond. He lowered his gaze to the keys and, for a moment, let the room fade away. He thought about Emma's laugh. About the nights she'd fallen asleep listening to the little tunes he would hum. About the promise he'd made to her, that no matter how hard things got, he'd never let her think life was only about survival. And then, softly, he pressed the first key. It wasn't loud or showy. Just a single, gentle note. Then another. Slowly, the sound began to weave into something more, a melody both fragile and strong, like a memory you didn't realize you'd been holding onto. The group of employees stopped laughing. There was something in the way Daniel's hands moved, deliberate, graceful, almost as if the piano had been waiting for him all along. Each note seemed to spill directly from his heart, filling the air with something raw and unfiltered. By the time a few seconds had passed, the entire lobby had grown quieter. Conversations hushed, champagne glasses were lowered, and people began to turn their heads toward the janitor who was playing like a man telling a story without words. Daniel didn't look up. He wasn't playing for them. He was playing for Emma. For the version of himself he'd lost. For the music that had been buried under years of exhaustion and routine. And somewhere in the crowd, unnoticed, the company's CEO had paused mid-conversation, eyes fixed on the man at the piano. What started as a joke was turning into something no one could have predicted. The room was dead silent after Jack's last note faded. No one dared to speak, as though breaking the moment would shatter something sacred. The CEO, Victoria Lang, stood frozen at the back of the hall. Her eyes glistened with tears she hadn't expected to shed, especially not over a janitor playing an old piano at a corporate gala. Jack slowly stood from the bench, feeling exposed. His hands trembled, not from nerves, but from the release of all the emotion he had poured into the keys. He wasn't used to people looking at him like this, with awe and respect instead of dismissal or pity. For years, Jack had been invisible, cleaning offices at night, sweeping floors no one cared to notice, mopping spills while employees hurried past without a word. But tonight, something had shifted, and it had happened because he had dared to share a piece of his soul. Victoria took a deep breath, collecting herself. She stepped forward, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. "Jack," she said, her voice wavering just slightly. Where did you learn to play like that?" Jack glanced at the keys, his voice quiet. "From my mother. She taught me before she passed away. She said music could speak the things words never could." A murmur spread through the room. Someone whispered, "I had no idea," another said, "That was unreal." Victoria studied him closely. "Why, didn't you ever tell anyone you could play?" Jack gave a half smile. "Would anyone have listened? I'm the janitor. People see the mop, not the man holding it." Her chest tightened at his words. She thought of all the times she'd walked past him in the office lobby, barely offering more than a polite nod. She'd never imagined there was a story, a talent, a heart like this behind the uniform. One of the executives, Michael, chuckled nervously. "Well, looks like we've been underestimating the guy cleaning our floors." That performance, it was world-class. Jack shifted uncomfortably under the attention. "It's just something I've always loved. It doesn't pay the bills, though." Victoria's eyes narrowed, almost as if she was making a silent decision. "Maybe it could. Jack, do you know we're opening a cultural outreach program next quarter? Music lessons for underprivileged kids. We've been searching for someone with not only skill, but heart. What do you say?" The room erupted in quiet gasps. A janitor being offered a position like that. It was unheard of. Jack stared at her. "Me, teaching music, why not?" she said firmly. "You have a gift, and gifts aren't meant to be hidden in broom closets." He swallowed hard. His mind spun. This wasn't part of the plan. His plan was simple. Work nights, care for his daughter Lily during the day, and keep their little apartment paid for. But teaching music, it felt like opening a door he had locked years ago. Then, a small voice echoed in his memory, Lily's voice from just a week ago. "Daddy, why don't you play piano anymore?" He had told her they didn't have one at home, and that it was just a hobby from long ago. But deep down, he knew he had stopped because life had told him there was no space for dreams when you're just trying to survive. Maybe it was time to prove himself wrong. Jack nodded slowly. "All right, I'll do it." A ripple of applause broke out, not the polite kind people give because it's expected, but the genuine, heartfelt kind that rises from real admiration. Over the next weeks, Jack's life began to change in ways he hadn't imagined. Victoria arranged for him to have access to the company's grand piano on weekends, and soon, a small group of children began coming for lessons. Some were shy, others restless, but Jack had a gift for drawing them in. He didn't just teach them notes, he taught them how to tell their own stories through music. Word spread quickly. The janitor who played like a concert pianist became a local legend. Newspapers picked up the story, and a reporter even came to interview him. But Jack stayed humble. At night, After his lessons, he still picked up the mop and did his janitorial work. One dream doesn't erase responsibility, he'd tell Lily when she asked why he still cleaned. Victoria watched him quietly from a distance, deeply moved. She saw how the kids lit up around him, how parents began thanking her for hiring him. But more than that, she saw how Jack was slowly starting to stand taller, how he no longer avoided eye contact, how he spoke with quiet confidence. One evening, after the last child left, Victoria approached him. "You know, Jack, the board wants to offer you the position full-time. Benefits, salary, no more cleaning shifts." He looked at her, caught off guard. "Full-time, that's a lot. It's what you deserve," she said simply. Jack hesitated. "But what about the janitorial staff? I don't want them to think I'm better than them now. They're my friends." Victoria smiled. "They'll be proud. You're proof that talent and determination can change the path you're on, no matter where you started." Jack finally accepted, and on his first day as the official music instructor, Lily was there in the front row, her eyes wide with pride. After the class, she ran to him, hugging him tightly. "Daddy, I knew you could do it." Jack knelt down, holding her close. "You were the reason I played that night. I wanted you to see that even when people think you're just one thing, you can surprise them." The journey from janitor to respected music teacher hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every step. And as Jack sat at the piano that evening, playing softly while Lily hummed along, he realized something. Music had not only brought him back to life, it had given him a future. And in the audience, Victoria watched with quiet satisfaction. Sometimes, she thought, the most extraordinary people are hidden in the most ordinary places. All it takes is one moment, one chance, and one song to reveal them.